When people think about the United States, they usually picture crowded cities, endless suburbs, and highways packed with traffic. From New York to California, America is often seen as a country that has filled every corner of its land. But that image only tells half the story. Beyond the famous cities lies a very different America, one defined by distance, silence, and space. Entire states exist where the land stretches endlessly, yet the number of people living on it remains surprisingly small. In this video, we're counting down the US states with the lowest populations or lowest population density, places where geography, climate, and economic structure have quietly limited who stays and who leaves. Number 10. Rhode Island. At first, Rhode Island doesn't look like it belongs on a list like this. It sits on the busy East Coast, surrounded by some of the most populated regions in the country. Yet despite that location, the state holds only about 1.1 million people. Outside of Providence, population thins out quickly. Towns become smaller, development slows, and large stretches of land remain residential or natural rather than urban. Even though the state is physically small, it still feels underfilled once you leave the main corridors. Climate quietly shapes that reality. Winters are long, cold, and windy, with snow and freezing temperatures that last for months. For many younger residents, this becomes a deciding factor to move south, where daily life is easier year-round. Rhode Island also lacks a true metropolitan engine. Providence, the largest city, has fewer than 200,000 residents, and no other city comes close. Without a major urban hub, population growth remains limited. When high living costs meet modest job growth and harsh winters, the result is a state that feels busier on the map than it does on the ground. Number 9. Delaware. Delaware's low population is less obvious until you look closely. Positioned between New York, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia, it feels like it should be crowded. But in reality, the entire state has only about 1 million residents. The reason isn't isolation, it's structure. Delaware never developed a large urban core capable of pulling people in at scale. Wilmington, the largest city, has fewer than 75,000 residents, leaving most of the population spread across small towns and rural areas. Much of the land is flat, agricultural, and lightly developed. Outside a few corridors, there is little pressure for density to form, and growth remains slow. Weather reinforces this pattern. Cold, damp winters, frequent wind, and long stretches of gray skies make the state less attractive than warmer coastal alternatives further south. Economically, Delaware functions more as a supporting state than a destination, strong in finance, administration, and agriculture, but limited in industries that draw younger or creative populations. As a result, it often feels like a quiet buffer zone, close to everything yet rarely chosen. Number 8. Vermont. Vermont's emptiness is not subtle, it's built into the landscape. With a population of roughly 650,000 people, the state feels quiet almost everywhere you go. The land itself plays a central role. Mountains, forests, and protected rural valleys dominate the state, leaving very little room for large-scale development. Many areas are intentionally preserved, which keeps population density low by design. Climate compounds the effect. Winters are long, heavy with snow, and slow to release their grip. Cold temperatures can linger well into spring, turning daily life into a seasonal challenge rather than a constant convenience. There is also no city acting as a population anchor. Burlington, the largest city, has fewer than 45,000 residents, and beyond it, towns shrink quickly in size and influence. With an economy centered on agriculture, tourism, and small local industries, Vermont offers stability rather than growth. That balance preserves its character, but also explains why so few people choose to stay long-term. Number 7. Maine. Life in Maine moves slowly, not by choice but by necessity. Distances are long, towns are far apart, and for much of the year, daily routines are shaped around weather rather than convenience. This rhythm discourages population growth, while the state covers a vast area only about 1.4 million people live here, and many communities feel isolated from one another. Outside coastal towns and a few regional centers, large areas remain sparsely inhabited. Winter defines the limits. Heavy snow, freezing temperatures, and cold Atlantic winds dominate nearly half the year. In rural regions, access to services becomes harder, and maintaining infrastructure grows costly. The land itself reinforces separation. Dense forests, rocky coastlines, and protected wilderness restrict where towns can expand. Much of Maine was never built for density, and retrofitting it for growth is neither simple nor economical. With an economy tied to fishing, forestry, and seasonal tourism, opportunities remain narrow. Over time, this combination has kept Maine spacious, not because people avoid it entirely, but because few stay long enough to fill it. Number 6. Wyoming. In Wyoming, scale works against settlement. The state spans enormous distances, yet daily life revolves around a small number of towns separated by hours of open land. Despite covering more territory than many countries, Wyoming is home to fewer than 600,000 people. That imbalance is not accidental. It reflects how difficult sustained settlement can be here. Weather is unforgiving. Strong winds, heavy snowfall, and prolonged cold dominate much of the year, leaving short windows for agriculture and construction. Even spring and fall offer little stability. Much of the land is either mountainous, federally protected, or unsuitable for dense development. Towns exist as isolated pockets rather than connected networks, limiting economic spillover between regions. Without a major metropolitan center, Cheyenne remains modest in size, population growth lacks momentum. Wyoming supports industries like energy extraction and ranching well, but these sectors don't require large populations to function. The result is a state built on distance, where space remains abundant because few systems exist to support density. Number 5. Montana. In Montana, emptiness isn't defined by absence, it's defined by proportion. The land simply overwhelms the number of people living on it. Although the state is one of the largest in the country, its population barely passes 1 million. That gap between land and residents shapes everything from infrastructure to economic opportunity. Settlement clusters are small and widely spaced. Outside a handful of regional cities, communities thin out quickly, and services become increasingly distant. Growth struggles to compound when population centers are so far apart. Climate adds another layer of resistance. Winters are long and severe, with heavy snowfall and persistent cold across much of the state. Maintaining roads, utilities, and housing becomes expensive relative to the number of people using them. The economy reflects this structure. Agriculture, mining, energy, and tourism dominate, all industries that function with limited labor density. Billings, the largest city, barely crosses the threshold of a mid-sized town. Montana isn't empty because it lacks appeal. It remains empty because its scale demands more people than its conditions can realistically support. Number 4. North Dakota. North Dakota's population problem isn't about size, it's about timing. Growth here comes in waves, not in steady lines. The state's economy is heavily tied to agriculture and energy extraction, especially oil. When prices rise, workers arrive. When cycles turn, they leave. This boom-and-bust rhythm makes long-term settlement difficult to sustain. Outside of these cycles, the state offers little incentive for density. Towns are built to support industry, not to attract permanent migration. Once demand fades, so does the population pressure. Geography reinforces this instability. Flat plains stretch for miles, with towns separated by long distances. Building dense urban networks in such conditions offers little return. Then there's winter. Brutal cold, persistent winds, and extended snow seasons add physical cost to everyday life. For many residents, staying is practical only as long as the work lasts. North Dakota doesn't stay lightly populated by accident, it fluctuates, and rarely settles. Number 3. South Dakota. South Dakota's population is thin because connection is thin. People are not clustered, they are dispersed. Most of the state is structured around agriculture and open land, with communities spread far apart and limited infrastructure linking them. Unlike states with strong urban spines, South Dakota lacks corridors that naturally pull people together. Cities never gained enough gravity to change this pattern. Sioux Falls is the largest, yet it functions more as a regional service hub than a magnet for large-scale migration. Beyond it, population drops off quickly. Climate adds friction rather than shock. Winters are long, cold, and windy, making expansion costly rather than impossible. Growth slows not from a single barrier, but from accumulated resistance. Economically, opportunities remain stable but narrow. Agriculture, tourism, and light manufacturing sustain communities, but rarely draw new ones in large numbers. South Dakota remains underpopulated not because people leave en masse, but because few arrive to replace them. Number 2, Idaho. Idaho looks like a state on the rise until you step outside its growth zones. While cities like Boise have expanded, most of the state remains sparsely inhabited. Growth concentrates instead of spreading, leaving large regions unchanged despite rising national interest. Geography sets firm limits. Mountain ranges, forests, high deserts, and protected land fragment the state into isolated pockets. Even when people move in, they tend to cluster where access already exists. Climate further narrows options. Long winters and heavy snowfall dominate much of the north and central regions, making year-round settlement practical only in select areas. Economic expansion follows the same pattern. Agriculture, food processing, mining, and selective tech growth create opportunity, but only in specific corridors. Outside them, momentum fades quickly. Idaho's population stays low not because it lacks growth, but because growth has nowhere to go. Number 1, Alaska. Living in Alaska is not about preference, it's about tolerance. Every aspect of settlement here demands adaptation, to distance, to darkness, and to cold that reshapes daily life rather than merely interrupting it. This alone sets a hard ceiling on how many people the state can realistically support. Despite being the largest state in the U.S., Alaska's population remains under 1 million, not because space is lacking, but because accessibility is. Vast regions are unreachable by road, dependent on air or sea transport, which turns basic logistics into ongoing challenges. The environment dictates limits. Long winters, extreme cold, heavy snow, and months of limited daylight reduce construction windows, strain infrastructure, and increase the cost of everything from housing to healthcare. Urban concentration never fully formed. Anchorage is the largest city, yet it functions more as a regional outpost than a true metropolitan hub. Beyond it, communities are small, isolated, and often separated by wilderness rather than highways. The economy reflects these conditions. Oil, fishing, and seasonal tourism operate within narrow margins and don't scale with population. Growth here is constrained not by policy or demand, but by reality itself. Alaska isn't sparsely populated because people overlook it. It's sparsely populated because only a few can sustain life there long-term. And that brings us to the end of our journey through the least populated states in the United States. From vast northern plains to remote wilderness and isolated interiors, each place on this list highlights one clear reality: space alone doesn't create settlement. Whether shaped by extreme climate, long distances, limited infrastructure, or narrow economic paths, these states show how livability, not land size, ultimately determines where people stay, grow, or move on. Together, they reveal a quieter side of the country, where limits accumulate slowly and population settles into place rather than expanding endlessly. If this breakdown helped you see population and space from a different angle, feel free to like the video, share it with others who enjoy long-form analysis like this, and subscribe so you don't miss future explorations. Thanks for watching.